Hello again, everybody. We are going to work on a piece of fruit today, and we're going to turn it into a vector version of itself, which means that it can be enlarged as much as you want, and it would not lose resolution. It would not become pixelated because the information is based on mathematical formulas that the pen tool creates as opposed to just pixel information. Okay, so I've got my image here of my piece of fruit. I'm going to work with a kiwi. For now, I'm only going to do this piece. I may add the second piece in the background in a little bit, but for right now, we're going to focus on here. So you want to make sure that your background is over here. It's going to open it on its own layer, and I'm going to adjust the opacity a little bit in the 70s area. I find is helpful. Okay, create new layer. So first, I need to figure out how many areas I need, color block areas, for example. I'm going to need a brown one here for the skin of the kiwi. I'm going to need a kind of a spring green, bright green. I'm going to need this whitish yellow and probably, well, not probably, I'm definitely going to need the seed layer as well. So that's about 4 different color block areas. I am going to have one more layer, and that is going to be a lines layer that's going to define, for example, like where the green stops and the brown begins, or where the yellow stops and the brown begins. And it can sometimes be done without this, as long as you don't have any 2 different areas that are the same color next to each other. Or if, for example, you're trying to define the front of the apple, like in front of where the stem pops up as opposed to behind it. But we're going to include it on all of these fruits anyway, just because it helps to give it that kind of cartoonish look. All right, so we will start with the lines. Make sure I'm on the pen tool here. And the first time you start this with the pen tool, you want to choose shape. As you make subsequent lines and subsequent additions to it, then you can shift to a path. And that will help to make sure that they all are created on the same layer instead of bunching up like a bunch of other layers here with different shapes that you later have to merge. Not a crisis if it happens, but you will want to merge them later. Okay, so I'm on shape. I have a black fill, which is what I want. I have no stroke, which is what I want. And I'm just going to pick a spot on this green oval to begin, maybe about there. I'm going to take a look at the curvature, and I can't go like all the way to this side because I don't feel like this is one curve. I feel like that's at least 2 different curves. So I'm going to come over to maybe about here, press and hold, and adjust those handlebars until it's pretty close to what I want. On your Chromebook, at this point, you will hold down the Alt key, come over here to the anchor point and click so that you eliminate one of those handlebars. Gonna move on maybe about here. And here's a useful trick. In the middle of your path creating, you can click and hold Command. And that, as you hover over an anchor point or a handlebar, will essentially employ the direct selection tool, which is going to allow you to click and drag and change the placement without having to go over there to the toolbar and pick a different tool. All right, so maybe that's where I want it. Back to clicking Alt and holding and tapping the anchor point. Okay, I'm gonna trace not all the way around this circle, and I'll explain a little bit more about that here in a second, but I'm gonna go around most of it. Probably all the way to there. Okay, I don't really like that curvature. I'm going to click and hold Command and adjust that up just a little bit. Adjust this, there we go, a little bit. And I can bring it, oops, bring it, there we go. I like that better. That's nice and smooth all the way around. Okay, I still have the pen tool active, and this was my last anchor point. And what I'm going to do is kind of backtrack all the way back around, and that's going to create a really thin version of this black shape instead of a big black oval. Now, to do this, you're going to want to become really close friends with your zoom function, because you're going to want to edge up close to the path that you've created. But if you get too close, it's going to think that you want to add another anchor point to the line that's already existing, and that's not what we want to do. So once I get that how I like it, that's pretty good. I'll go back to the Alt key and get rid of one of those handlebars and move on down. And if your line width is not exactly uniform, that's okay. It actually kind of adds some character if you've got some thicker areas and some thinner areas. What you do want to make sure is where your curves stop and start, where there is an anchor point, it doesn't break and look kind of clumsy. You want it to look kind of graceful and nice. And please remember that you absolutely have to have a mouse to make this work. The trackpad on your Chromebook does not have the function that you need for this tool. All right, so let me show you what happens if you get too close to the curve. Let's say I want to be right next to it. Well, actually, that one didn't do it. Oops, okay. So that's too close. It's ruined my line over here. Clearly not what I want to do. So I'm just going to click over here in my history, one action back, and zoom in until I get really close to it. And that can allow you to get closer before Photopea assumes that you're trying to put another anchor point on the original line. Okay, all the way back to closing it and making that curve really kind of nice and smooth. There we go. Zoom back out, and now I've got my first kind of black outline there. Okay, moving on, I need to define the bottom of the brown area. I want to stay on this layer, which actually now is a great time to go ahead and call this your lines layer. And when I switch to a path, it's going to allow me to continue making marks on this layer without stacking them up over here. So I'm going to start this one over here, pretty close, but not touching. And if you ever start one of these marks and it doesn't fill it automatically, you want to check your settings because you may be working on the background layer on a path, and that is going to be not good because you're going to have to do it over again on the layer that you have set up for it on the lines layer. All right, that's as far as my curve is going to go. So now it's time to backtrack. It's a little hard for me to see that, so let's zoom out. Actually, I like that just how it is. Okay, I've closed the path, good deal. I can hit enter. I can just tap on the background layer to get rid of all those anchor points in the blue line. Okay, moving on, I need to create that yellow whitish area. And then the seeds. The seeds are probably going to take up the most time, and I'm going to put those in with ellipses instead of the pen tool, because I can assume that those are ovals. All right, starting a new layer, going back to shape, and going to start with these curves. And because this is actually like a smooth transition between the yellow, well, the white area into the yellow area into the green area, I can just kind of approximate on where I want those changes to happen. And I am almost closing the path, but not quite. On this one, I think I'm actually going to go toward the outside. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. So there's an example of just getting too close to the original line and either having to move further away from it or zoom in so that I could do it properly. But I'm on a better course now. Okay, I got a little bit ahead of myself when I put this on its separate layer. This really should be combined with the lines layer because it is the same lines. So we're going to merge those. Rename if you have to. There we go. All right, and now I'm going to actually create the yellowish white version of that center area. Be descriptive with your layer naming, and please get in the habit of naming them like as soon as you create them. It's going to help you. If you need help, it's going to help me help you. Okay, so once you go into the color areas to fill it, you're going to pretty much stick within the inside of your black layer. And I'm going to go ahead and change that fill color because I don't want to get confused with the black. To pick a really soft white yellow. There we go. You want to be careful not to make your color bigger than the black outline because then you'll have yellow that extends into where the green should be, or whatever colors you're working with your fruit. There we go. And when I shift the layers, the lines layer above it, now I've got a really nice color change, black outline. I can tap the background layer to see it without my blue. And this is how we're going to move forward. I'm going to put in the green the same way. I'm going to put in the brown down here and then get working on the seeds. All right, so that's the basics of those colors. I think I am going to create a highlight brown layer down here. I'm not too worried about the green creating a highlight because it's a pretty consistent color here. There is some shadow work that could be done, but I'm not too interested in that level of detail right now. So I'm just going to make a highlighted brown for this left-hand side kind of curvature, which is going to help to create the roundness down here. I don't want too much of that. I don't want to get too detailed, but I do want a little bit of that indication. So I'm going to keep the visibility of the brown off here so that I can really see the shape of that highlight. I need to make sure I'm not working on my background layer. And I'll start right about there. And go ahead and change that fill to be a brown that's a little bit more highlight-ish. Looking good. All I need is my seeds, and then we'll be good to go. Okay, so over here on the right-hand side in the layers panel, you can see that I am stacking up shape upon shape upon shape. And that is because when I'm using the pen, that's because I'm using the ellipse tool as a shape. So if I change that to a path, you can see that it adds it to the current layer as opposed to creating new ones. So what I'm going to do is click on the top one, click and hold shift, tap on the bottom, merge all of these, and then move forward using the path tool. there we have a pretty legit vector version of a kiwi. Like I said, I could go into more detail if I wanted with the green layers, but really I don't want to get this too complex. This is already probably what do you got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 layers for main color. This is going to be brown highlight. Okay, so this is what you would save for your PSD. I'm going to go ahead and turn my background off. You can export a JPEG as well, because you never know when you're going to need that. I mean, obviously for Canvas, but don't forget to save your PSD because you will be using these files in the future. So for right now, enjoy, create your own fruit. You won't be doing a kiwi, you'll be choosing from the options in Canvas, and I look forward to seeing them.